What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the show. As always, I'm your host, Zach Cronin, and as always, we have a bunch of stuff to discuss on today's episode. We don't have many topics, or there aren't many topics that I want to get to, individual news stories. I have a sneaking suspicion that all of today's episode is going to center around the assassination of Charlie Kirk that occurred yesterday at Utah Valley State University while Kirk was having one of those change my mind style debates. I've uh, I've had the same statement on virtually all of my social media platforms. I posted on Twitter, I posted on my Instagram. I did a little YouTube short as well as I then put that over on TikTok. But my feelings on this are very simple. Charlie Kirk was Charlie Kirk was a man who had detestable opinions. He had a gross ideology and a worldview that I disagreed with wholeheartedly. Regardless of that, regardless of his views and his opinions, he did not deserve to die yesterday. Violence is unacceptable, regardless of who it is perpetuated against. Every time that I do this show, every segment that I talk about that involves violence, I try to advocate for non violence because violence only begets violence. To commit a violent act against an individual like Charlie Kirk doesn't advance anybody's agenda. I I say all this because I don't even know where to go with this. I'm like it's been I don't want to say that it's been difficult for me to process this. I didn't have a connection to Charlie Kirk in any way. I didn't know him as a human being. I didn't know him as a man. I have made videos on him in the past. I've said a bunch of mean things to him because again, like we disagree, and I think that he was a virulent white supremacist who perpetuated tremendous amounts of hatred and dehumanization on already marginalized communities. But that still doesn't take away from the fact that this was a tragedy. Maybe this does hit me a little bit because he was a young guy. I didn't know that he was only 31 years old. He's 2 years older than me. I will be 29 next month. I understand that he leaves behind his wife and two children. I Regardless of how much I despised him, I still recognized his humanity. I always try to recognize the humanity in people who are having violence perpetuated against them, whether that is Charlie Kirk, whether that is the citizens of Gaza, whether that is minorities who are subject to police brutality. I don't want that to get lost in translation. What I specifically want to talk about, I do also have a video about some new developments in this case because it is still ongoing. The authorities have effectively no idea what the fuck's going on. They're doing their best to collect evidence, but at this time, the shooter has not been apprehended. There was an original gentleman taken into custody. It was later found out that he was not the one who killed Charlie Kirk. He was subsequently released, but this is still an ongoing situation. In the aftermath of this, let me get back to what I want to address specifically. I want to highlight the conservative response to this, which is it is really frightening. It's frightening. It's unnerving. I am not someone who is easily unsettled. I saw I saw both angles of Charlie Kirk yesterday. I see pictures of dead babies on my feed every day. There are not many things that can rattle me. I see death and destruction online every day of my life. And I know it's not unhealthy, but unfortunately, I've built up a little bit of a desensitization to it. With that said, the way that conservative media and conservative politicians are handling this response is unsettling, especially as someone who they're going to perceive as a political enemy. I do then want to touch on the media's response to Charlie Kirk, because I don't believe that they are doing an appropriate job of accurately portraying the kind of political force that he was. I think they are watering down his output and not giving all of these new learners of Charlie Kirk the full scope of his ideas and his ideologies. I do then want to close out by discussing the rise of violence in the United States. However, before we get into all of that, there is no shortage of conspiracy theories being thrown around. There are people saying that Mossad did this. There are people saying that Donald Trump did this. I'm not feeding into any of these conspiracies either. I don't do that whenever there is a tragedy like this, whether it's an assassination, whether it's a school shooting, because someone died. Someone died yesterday. Multiple people died yesterday, as there was also a school shooting in Colorado. I don't want to take this moment of tragedy to perpetuate an unfounded conspiracy theory, regardless of how coincidental a lot of this may be. I do, however, have many questions about this entire situation. Why was Benjamin Netanyahu the first public figure or the first political figure to release a statement about Charlie Kirk? Why was the security detail so lax? Why were they unable to find this person, this potential suspect, beforehand? Again, I understand that security doesn't really prevent anything like this. The only way to prevent someone dying by way of a gunshot is to implement more gun control, which is unfortunately not going to happen. There are just a lot of coincidences. There are now videos circling around of these two individuals behind Charlie Kirk who are seemingly doing these hand signals, which plays into the idea that this was a professional hit, as we're going to see in this video from Fox News. A former FBI agent breaks it down. I will say that is not a conspiracy. The person who did this, regardless of if they were a hitman or not, is someone who is trained in using high-powered bolt-action rifles. You don't just connect on a vital shot on somebody from 430 feet away. For all of people outside of the United States, that is around 200 meters or so, a little bit less. A little bit less. It's probably closer to like 150 meters. They were saying 200 yards. The official measurement is 430. Is 430 feet. So we're gonna get right into this reporting. This is courtesy of Fox News. It was posted today. It was from their coverage on Fox and Friends. Brian Kilmeade, and I forget who his co-host is. And even this reporting is a little behind. So they are talking to a former FBI agent about this. As we know, the FBI is currently involved in this alongside the state authorities for Utah. The FBI, however, is in complete fucking shambles. They have been perpetuating, I say misinformation. It wasn't willful misinformation. They just have no fucking idea of what the hell is going on for multiple reasons. One, because Kash Patel is the director of the FBI. Two, because Dan Bongino is the deputy director of the FBI. Three, because a 22-year-old Austin Powers cosplayer is the head of domestic terrorism at the FBI. Four, the FBI's workforce has been drastically reduced since Donald Trump came into office. And fifth, and perhaps most consequentially, is the director of the FBI's division inside of Utah was fucking fired. She was fucking fired. That is why all of these law enforcement agents, that is why the federal law enforcement agency is basically fucking useless, because there is rampant incompetence at the top of the organization.
The only information we have on the suspect, the possible Shooter is taken from closed circuit TV here on campus. We do know dressed in all dark clothing.
Where the shot came from?
The shot came from here on campus, from a location at a fair roof. Potentially from a roof, yes. A longer distance shot from a roof.
This is a Fox News alert right now. A frantic man, the assassin who...
They're not going to show it for some reason. I did watch this video beforehand, but as I said, this was probably, they were probably not privy to the picture when they were live this morning, I don't think. This is the new suspect, dressed in all black, allegedly wearing knee pads. I don't know about the validity of that. It appears that he's also dressed in a shirt that has a American flag and a bald eagle on it. One of the and I hate to say one of the jokes floating around in the aftermath of this is that right-wingers are trying to say that this was a leftist. This was a member of the radical left who perpetuated this assassination. DSA members are not hitting shots from 430 feet out. This guy does not look like an American leftist. I'm sorry. As someone who is deeply involved in progressive politics online, he just simply does not fit the bill. And I will touch on more of this political aspect later on, but just so you guys know, this is what the new suspect looks like, and we will get back to Fox.
Killed Charlie Kirk on a college campus in Utah yesterday. 2 people were detained, but then they were ultimately released.
Former FBI agent Stuart Kaplan joins us now. Stuart, what can you tell us? This is what they told us. No mention of what the person was, who he is, or she is. Long rifle, perched atop a building east on the school's library. Person wearing jeans, a black vest, a black mask.
Building on this, I will be cutting in not so much with commentary, but more so with just clarification on this reporting. The high-powered rifle was found out to be a bolt-action rifle, a long-range hunting rifle. There was original speculation that it was a military-grade rifle, which has since been disproven. Further playing into the fact that this individual, regardless of if he was a hitman or not, was someone who potentially was a hunter, is very familiar with taking these types of shots. The gun was found in the woods. They didn't have that information, I don't believe, either. There was also another piece of misinformation floating around, courtesy of the Wall Street Journal, of course, saying that there were carvings and engravings in these bullets that had transgender and anti-fascist ideology on them. I don't understand what the fuck that's supposed to mean. I don't know how you would inscribe transgender ideology into a bullet. Furthermore, we don't even know if there were any shell casings left on the scene. Fortunately, the ATF has come out and said that this report is effectively untrue at this point. They don't have any evidence to corroborate that. That to me just seems like the State Department, the intelligence agencies, the FBI trying to, disperse a little bit of propaganda in this instance. And I will say that is exceptionally gross. That is exceptionally gross. I don't want to hear any sort of propaganda out of your fucking pie hole unless you are advocating for gun control. That is the only thing that would have stopped Charlie Kirk from getting fucking whacked yesterday. Utah is a red state, and it is a red state with clearly very relaxed gun laws. I'm not familiar with them myself. However, I do have a friend who lives in Utah, and he said the same thing. Very relaxed gun laws. There was also apparently legislation going through the state legislature, there was apparently legislation going through the state's Congress to allow children to open carry on college campuses with the appropriate permits. Don't fucking talk to me about anything other than gun control, please.
That's all we know.
Yeah, law enforcement is quite frankly scrambling right now to work backwards and try to identify first how this person gained access onto that rooftop. But what they do know, and I think their biggest concern, is this was a targeted attack. The target was Charlie Kirk. This same individual had the opportunity to inflict.
I'm gonna be a little bit of a fucking lib on this. This dude does not pronounce Charlie Kirk's name right at any point in this segment, and it kind of just bothers me. It just bothers me, and I know that I'm throwing stones, right? Because I fuck up plenty of names all the time, but the guy is dead, man. The guy is dead. The guy is dead. Now, you don't have to feel any sympathy for him, and I will also get into that later when we address the media's response to this, but at least say his name correctly.
Other mass casualties, but this person chose to maintain his or her discipline. They got up, they took the shot, and then they got out of there. That indicates that there was a survey prior to yesterday where this individual had the lay of the land to understand how to get onto this rooftop and then how to very quietly escape undetected at this point. That is a very difficult task for the FBI and other law enforcement partners to work through to try to get some indication of who this person may be.
Stuart, we all want this person to be caught. What is the FBI looking for? Because all we're hearing, like Brian said, person dressed in black. That's like every person.
Well, there's a lot of information that I'm sure that the FBI has. For way of example, we don't know whether or not the shooter left the weapon behind. We don't know whether or not a shell casing, the one bullet was discharged from the rifle. Was it a bolt action? If it was a bolt action, that means someone manually would have to discharge or eject that shell casing. Did they collect the shell?
We know that the gun was found in the woods behind campus in the direction that the suspect fled, and that it was a bolt action rifle, which means that perhaps the shell casing, perhaps this individual did not discharge the shell casing. At this point, the forensic data is more so for the bullet that killed Charlie. The bullet went through his neck, went in one side, and then popped out the other. So that bullet is still there, and they still have to analyze it. Again, I'm not trying to paint these people as, disingenuous. They were not privy to this information. Otherwise, they would have talked about it.
Casing, have they sent it for fingerprint analysis or DNA analysis? Now that can be turned around in a very short period of time. That hasn't been disclosed to us with respect to the weapon, the shell casing, and of course today you're going to see an attempt to try to locate the bullet itself, because the bullet obviously went through Charlie Kirk. It has to end up impaled somewhere. They're going to try to locate that. They're going to try to work backwards. You're going to see them out on this venue with lasers to try to set up some sort of forensic trajectory to see exactly how this person was perched and try to then identify a profile. Was there any active threat against Charlie Kirk that, quite frankly, is not known to the public, and try to nail down if there are individuals that may be out there that they're aware of?
Stuart, give me an idea of the level of skill a sniper had to have to be able to pull off that shot.
Well, like I said, when you take a look at the altitude or the elevation of the way Charlie Kirk was seated, he had a tent over him. And so when you back up, let's say 450 feet, 500 feet, 600 feet, that shot becomes more and more difficult because you're looking down at that target. That is why I believe it wasn't, quote unquote, a headshot. It was taken at the upper torso because the line of sight only exposed Charlie Kirk's upper torso area or the neck area. I think if the tent wasn't concealing Charlie Kirk's head, quite frankly, you would have seen this as a headshot. There is a degree of expertise. There is no doubt in my mind this person is to some extent a professional. This was a professional hit by all accounts, especially by the fact that he had an opportunity to discharge that weapon multiple times randomly, but he chose to stay on target.
Stuart, how confident are you that they'll catch him?
Well, let me tell you, the men and women of the FBI with their counterparts are the best in the world. I can tell you, with having Kash Patel at the helm, the FBI, and I've...
All right, this guy, he's wrong on this. I'm sorry. You have an absolute fucking buffoon. You have an absolute fucking buffoon running the FBI right now. It's also worth mentioning that Luigi Mangione, the alleged killer of Brian Thompson, wasn't caught until a couple of days after, right? Wasn't it? It was like 2 or 3 days, I believe. And it was because this fucking idiot went to McDonald's, right? I'm forgetting the chain of events, but it was a slip up by Luigi that led to him being tracked down by the FBI in conjunction with also someone calling the police.
Spoken to several agents that are now on their way to Utah. You have the best of the best in the world on this planet who are going to work 24 hours a day. They're going to find this guy. The biggest concern is this individual has shown that he is not willing to engage law enforcement. He doesn't want to be apprehended. He doesn't want to be engaged in a shootout. This is a very, very dangerous individual. The threat level to public figures, to include the president, as high as that threat level is, has been elevated exponentially since yesterday.
Stuart, at first I thought, why would he wear black? Look at the buildings. But then I realized the roof is black, all right? And we have footage, at some point we'll show it, of a guy walking around. We don't know if it's him. And we have a person commentating saying, what's that guy doing up there? And the other question would be, you got a black mask, you got a black vest, you need ammo, you have a rifle. Are there rifles, sniper rifles, high-level sniper rifles that could separate, like a pool stick, and be able to put maybe into a vest pocket so you can walk out of a place without saying, who's that guy with the gun?
No question about it. There are weapons that you can disassemble within seconds. And certainly, again, someone would have the proficiency to be able to do that. Keep in mindset to then disassemble that weapon in a very short time span, put it in a bag, and extricate them off that rooftop. That is why, quite frankly, that weapon may have been left behind. We just don't know that. The FBI may be sitting on that information. They just don't want to publicly make that available to us. But again, it's more consistent with the proficiency and the expertise of this shooter.
Stuart, excellent job. Thank you for your service over the years, and thanks for coming on and waking up this early. We appreciate it.
The weapon, as I mentioned, was found in the woods behind campus. I don't know if it was disclosed whether or not it was disassembled or not. The FBI, I was just reading on CBS News, the FBI, this was unbeknownst to me, was supposed to have a press conference today at 1:45 Eastern time. That, however, was postponed. I'm reading it right now on Google News. FBI news conference postponed due to quote-unquote rapid developments. The Utah Department of Public Safety said the FBI news conference that was scheduled for 2:45 p.m. Eastern has been postponed, citing rapid developments. Quote, due to the rapid developments in our situation, we will suspend this news conference, the Utah DPS said in a statement. We will release an updated time later today.